Good morning, students. You're welcome to today's biology class for SS1. And today we are going to be treating the topic Pests and Diseases of Agricultural Importance. Pests and Diseases of Agricultural Importance. Somehow last week in our Zoom class, we treated this topic a little bit. But I want to do justice to this topic through this video class in which I'm going to detail out some of the points that were a little bit summarized in our previous class. I will equally show you some diagrams of life cycles of some pests of agricultural importance. In our today's topic, like I rightly said, pests and diseases of agricultural importance, I want to mention, according to what you're seeing on the screen, that the specific objectives will include, at the end of this lesson, I should be able to define pests and diseases of agricultural importance, state the types of pests, describe the effects and life cycles of pests of agricultural importance. These are going to guide our teaching and learning experience today. Let's start by definition of pests and diseases. Pests are living organisms that impede or disrupt the growth and development of agricultural products through their parasitic associations. These parasitic associations reduce the expected farm productivity. What do we mean by that? Pests are living organisms. Of course, a pest must be living first and foremost. It is not made up of non-living things. They are living things that disrupt the development of our agricultural products like crops and farm animals. And because of that, they are recognized as pests. We are going to be stating some of the examples as we go forward. Let's define the word disease. Disease can be defined as the malfunctioning or abnormal condition that disorientates the well-being of an organism through pathogenic and non-pathogenic activities. I will explain what these terms are. Disease can be defined as the malfunctioning, out of state, out of condition of the functions, both physiological and anatomical dimension of a living organism. When there is a malfunctioning in the physiological aspect of a living organism, it can be as a result of disease condition, which can be caused by a pathogen. A pathogen is a disease-causing organism. Well, the other side of it that says non-pathogenic activities, it can be genetic. There are some diseases and disorders that happen in living organisms that are not pathogenic caused, but they are caused by genetic transmission. Of course, you know, in human beings you have things like the sickle cell anemia, which is a genetic disease, and so many other diseases that are genetic oriented. Even mutation, which on the disadvantaged aspect can harm an organism, as an organism can suffer albinism. That is a non-pathogenic dimension of disease as well. So that gives us the definition of disease, but our main focus will be based on the pests themselves. Subsequently in our classes, we are going to be dealing with diseases of crops and farm animals. So let me repeat the definition for pests as our guideline. Pests are living organisms that impede or disrupt the growth and development of agricultural products through their parasitic associations. These parasitic associations reduce the expected farm productivity. And so we are going to look at the different types of agricultural pests. And when it comes to agriculture, there are two dimensions of agriculture. You have the crop production part and you have the animal production. That is animal farming and crop farming. Now, there are two main types of agricultural pests. You have crop pests and then you have animal pests. By our definition, crop pests are those pests that attack agricultural plant products, while animal pests are those that attack farm animals. There are different types. You have them. We are going to discuss them in detail as we go forward. Example of crop pests include grasshopper, aphid, beetle, caterpillar, weevil, and so many other types. Then examples of animal pests include mites, bugs, tsetse fly, tapeworm, fasciola, the popular one we call flukes. You have Fasciola hepatica, you have Fasciola gigantica, and so many other ones. They all belong to the common name of a parasitic flatworm called flukes. The next one, the roundworm, the pinworm, and so many other nematodes that attack farm animals and make life miserable for them, affecting the productivity of those farm animals. These are just few examples of this crop pest and animal pest. But let's go ahead with the crop pest first. As I said, subsequently we'll be treating them in detail, but let's target on crop first for now. The crop pests can be divided into 5 different types. Crop pests can be divided into 5 different types, which include the leaf feeders. These classifications are based on their habits, their feeding habits, on what they feed in a particular crop, whether they feed on the leaves, or they feed on the stem, or they feed on the root. So the first one is leaf feeders. The second one, the stem borers. The third one, the root feeders. The fourth one, the young shoot feeders. Because when a crop is beginning to grow, at the germination stage of a plant, of a crop, there are some pests that like feeding on those germinating plants and crops. And so we are going to specifically highlight on those pests that can also feed on them. So they belong to the young shoot feeders. Then you have the seed and fruit feeders. These are the 5 types of crop pests that can be categorized. And so we start with the leaf feeder, or rather the leaf feeders. Among the numerous leaf feeders are the caterpillar, the moth larva, the grasshopper, the snail, and certain beetles. There are so many of them that feed on leaves of plants. And some of you can have examples that I did not mention in this particular place. They are numerous. Now, these pests that we have mentioned attack specifically the leaves of plants. Their leaves, and you know when a leaf is attacked, the main effect to that plant is that it will lose its photosynthetic ability. It will no longer manufacture carbohydrate for itself, and the plant tends to wither gradually, and before you know it, the plant is off, and the farmer gains nothing at the end of the day. So these pests attack mainly the leaves of crops and other green parts of a plant. The grasshopper mainly consumes the green leaves of crops from their nymphal stage. grasshoppers are voracious feeders of leaves of plants with their biting and chewing mouth parts. And in order to tackle the issue of grasshoppers, we are going to look at the life cycle, because one of the ways of understanding crop pests is to look at the life cycles of this pest in order to understand them and to know when they attack crops. It also helps in pest control. If you can understand the life cycle of pests, you can easily control them at one of their stages or the other. So let's look at the life cycle of a grasshopper. Now, among insects, of course, grasshopper belongs to the class Insecta, and it also belongs to the phylum Arthropoda. Now, among the insects are the largest group of animal pests that attack crops. And there are two types of life cycles among the insects. You have what is known as complete metamorphosis and incomplete metamorphosis. For the grasshopper operates incomplete metamorphosis, a cycle in which you have the mature stage laying eggs which will hatch into the nymph. The nymph is the young adult. It resembles the adult in every way except that it is sexually immature, and in most cases they are wingless. But as they develop, they will grow into a winged grasshopper into the adult stage. So how does the grasshopper affect the life cycle and also attack plants? First and foremost, the grasshopper, a female grasshopper, lays the egg on the ground by digging a hole on the ground and then laying the eggs inside the soil. After some days, the eggs are going to hatch into the nymphs. All these nymphs are going to emerge from the soil and immediately go into the crops and climb as much as they can. They will climb the crops and begin to eat and feed on their green parts. As long as the part is tender for the nymph to feed on, is going to bite and chew from that part of the crop. And as these things are going on, the chlorophyll is being affected and the ability of the plant to produce carbohydrate will be impeded. And that is why they are important crop pests. Now, from the nymphal stage, it will be undergoing what is called molting. Molting is the shedding of the exoskeleton of an insect for the sole reason of growth. As the nymph is growing, it will be shedding the exoskeleton. In this process, I called molting. And each stage of the molting is called ecdysis. As the grasshopper matures into that of adult stage, its feeding ability and rate increases, that it can begin to even go to the areas of the plant other than the leaves. It can also feed on the greenish stem and other parts. This is one of the most important pests that attack crops. So, by the stage life cycles you're seeing on your screen, you can see the incomplete metamorphosis that grasshopper undergoes, and at which stage it starts attacking the crops at the nymphal stage. So, grasshopper is a leaf feeder, is a pest that feeds on the leaf, and that is why it is classified there. There are other ones like we mentioned earlier. Also, you have things like snail. Snail is also a leaf feeder. All right? Apart from feeding on fresh leaves, the snail can also feed on decaying leaves. And organisms that feed on freshly decaying leaves are known as detritus feeders. So snail is also there. Now, let's go to the next pest that can feed on leaves, and that is the beautiful caterpillar. The caterpillar, of course, you know, is a developmental stage of the butterfly. And once it is in existence, it feeds on nothing else but leaves of plants. Another voracious eater of leaves. Now, look at the life cycle of butterfly on the screen. You can see the adult stage, which culminates, or rather gives birth by laying eggs on the back of leaves of plants. When these eggs are due for hatching, they will hatch into the larval stage of butterfly, and that larva is called caterpillar. Wherever you see the caterpillar, it is always feeding. With its biting and chewing mouth part, it is voraciously feeding on the leaves of plants. And it continues like that. Now, the unique thing about these developmental stages of pest insects that feed on crops is that when the adult lays the egg, it does not lay only one egg. The eggs of insects can be in their hundreds, can be in their thousands. As a matter of fact, the moth also lays eggs, and the eggs can be up to 3,000 to 4,000 eggs by a single moth. So you could imagine when a moth has laid egg in a particular farm, even if it is one moth, what will happen to the entire farm if all the eggs will successfully hatch. Is going to bring a lot of pests to that farm, and woe betide that farm. That will be the end of the farm for such, if nothing is done to curtail the voracious feeding habit of the caterpillar. So, according to what you are seeing already, the caterpillar is the larval stage of the butterfly, which goes into the pupa stage. But in the pupa stage, it does not affect the plant. It's only the caterpillar that feeds on the plant. Now, butterfly has what is known as complete metamorphosis. Butterfly has complete metamorphosis, of which there are 4 stages in this complete metamorphosis. You have the egg stage, the larva stage, the pupa stage, and then the adult butterfly stage. With the understanding of this, you can know how to control the caterpillar. Now, I want to bypass some of the examples of the other pests I mentioned, but I will come back to them. Let's go to the seed and fruit feeders. The seed and fruit feeders. And an example of that is the rice weevil. The rice weevil is a rice crop pest. It feeds on rice grain. It reduces the quality of rice products. It attacks rice in such a way that it can even transmit some diseases and pathogens to the rice crop. And so the weevil undergoes what is known as complete metamorphosis. As you can see on your screen, you can see that the adult will lay the egg, and the egg will develop into the larva, which is called the grub. And the larva will now develop into the pupa. When the pupa develops, it will develop into what is known as an imago. Imago is a young adult which can start feeding on the rice grain. And you also have the beans weevil as well. But the one on your screen is for rice, and they attack mainly rice grain. Now, there are other pests of fruits and seeds, like some nematodes, some worms, that also attack fruits and seeds, that reduce the quality of seeds and fruits and make them of no essence. Even at the point of sales, it will reduce the income of the farmer. Now let's go a little bit into the stem and the stem borers and some young shoot feeders. A typical example of the young shoot feeders and also a stem borer is the popular aphid. There are different species of aphids, and they have a piercing and sucking mouth parts. As you can see on your screen, there are different stages that the aphid passes through. But all in all, the aphid undergoes incomplete metamorphosis. It starts with the adults, and then the adult lays the eggs, and the eggs will hatch into the nymph, which is the young adult. Resembles the adult in every possible way, but lacks sexual maturity. But as a matter of days and weeks, it will get to that stage. But the moment an aphid hatches from the egg stage into the nymphal stage, it will start feeding. It has piercing and sucking mouth parts that looks like that of a mosquito too, but with slight differences. It pierces the stem, both the young shoot of plant, and gets down even to the central cylinder of a stem, where you can find the vascular bundles of xylem and phloem. And it begins to suck every nutrient from the plant. The cell sap of a plant, it takes everything from it, from the phloem, which carries the produced carbohydrates through photosynthesis. This aphid has the ability to suck everything out of the plant, and gradually the plant will wither and die off. So aphid is a very important crop pest that we have in agriculture, and this pest ought to be controlled. There are so many methods of controlling them, which I don't want to mention now because I want you to do it as your assignment. As we gradually approach the end of this class, please, your assignment, you have to do it and submit into the Google Classroom. I'm going to put up your detailed note also on the Google Classroom. And before Wednesday of this week, please make sure that you submit your assignment. The assignment is on your screen, and I'm going to read it out. List 4 types of control measures for crop pests and give 2 examples in each. You have to do this assignment. Don't depend on anybody. You can go into your textbooks, modern biology, whichever one, to help you and guide you into this assignment. Thank you and remain blessed.